I've probably read somewhere just above 300 books altogether in my life so far. In 2020 alone, I read 82, and the number of total books in my life would be higher if I counted each time I finished a book, rather than the individual books I've read. Since I like rereading works I feel have the potential to give me something new each time I read them. So the number of finished books might be closer to 400 or so, but I'm estimating quite a bit here. This might sound like a lot to some of you, but I assure you it's not really. If, for instance, you'd spend only about 30 minutes a day reading, you'll already finish around 20 books in a year, meaning 100 books in 5 years, which is not bad at all. That's a lot of words, a lot of ideas, and a lot of knowledge to take in. But is that actually what you do when you read? There's plenty of reasons to read, and my reasons might be completely different to yours. One might read solely for pleasure, or exclusively for learning, or to seem smart, or to reaffirm one's worldview and beliefs, or even to challenge them. There's as many reasons to read as there are readers, and even more if you count all the reasons people imagine before they begin their reading journey. I don't mean to pick apart anyone's reasons for reading, that's their business, but I do want to confront an idea I see people have of what reading is supposed to do for you, compared to what I believe it actually does. Now, I'm not here to discourage anyone from reading. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I recommend that everyone, no matter who you are or where you're at in life, to pick up a book. Perhaps not any book, but I'll get to that later. Reading is probably the most direct way we can immerse ourselves in fully formed thoughts that are not our own. Speech is arguably a better tool for transmitting ideas in the moment, where one is also free to interrupt and ask for clarification or give opinions and discuss the topic further. But when you read, you're taking in pre-distilled and developed thoughts by someone who's given them the time to mature and grow. This is not something you can do in a single conversation. Only in conversation and context you're able to go back to regularly. And unfortunately, we're not all free to talk to any author or thinker whenever we like, since most of them have lives of their own, or they're dead, like all my favorite authors are. This issue might be solved in the not too distant future by AI, but that's a dystopian vision I'd prefer not to dive into right now. Watch my previous video for an opinion on that. Either way, reading is the simplest option available to us of getting in contact with whatever idea or feeling or concept one is interested in. And reading is also so much more than just books. Novels, magazines, newspapers, websites, audiobooks, and art. Even this essay you're listening to right now is also a form of reading, according to me. It's all about ingesting ideas through words. And if that's what you're doing, then it's reading, no matter what form it takes. I prefer sitting down with a book in my hand, as I appreciate the feel of the physical object, but I also read on my e-readers, my computer, or listening on YouTube or Substack to essays and podcasts. So reading is a fantastic way of ingesting distilled ideas. It's all around us at all times in multiple different forms, and doesn't have to take up too much of your time for you to still be able to get plenty done. Then what's the catch? Well, as I alluded to earlier, the idea of what reading is supposed to do for you, compared to what it actually does, seems not to align for a ton of people, and especially to those who don't themselves read that much yet. You can read for any reason you like, but what reading gives you is not the same thing. Reading, I believe, is not actually about obtaining knowledge. Rather, it's about living with ideas and observing them coalesce within your person. Reading doesn't just give you facts, it gives you experiences. And experience and knowledge are two quite different things. And I'd argue one is more valuable for the individual, particularly in our time with the internet, where knowledge is not too hard to come by. Experience is more difficult to find, but all the more potent when you do. All literature is an attempt to make life real. As all of us know, even when we don't act on what we know, life is absolutely unreal in its directly real form. The country, the city, and our ideas are all absolutely fictitious things, the offspring of our complex sensation of our own selves. Impressions are incommunicable unless we make them literary. What I'm going to talk about is mostly applicable to works where the presence of the person writing the text can be genuinely felt, at least to some degree. Think poetry, fiction, philosophy, essays, and other forms of non-fiction where the author still gives their perspective. Reading in which the thoughts of the writer is more important than just transcribing the facts of the universe. Facts are also worth our time, even if it feels like a lot of people overlook them today, but what I want to focus on here are ideas, and how reading is like swimming through them. An idea is nothing without a person interpreting it. Plato may have argued in favor of his metaphysical forms, his word for ideas or concepts, as living outside space and time, and that all material things got their form in physical reality through these eternal forms. He said there is a supposed perfect circle out there, which all circles get their circleness from. But even if that's the case, the idea of the perfect circle is nothing to us if no one thinks of it. The circleness of all circles only means something to us if we are free to interpret it as a circle, an idea. Since it's through ideas we conceive the world that we perceive. An idea can both literally and metaphorically shatter and alter how we view the world around us. We all know the feeling of two ideas colliding and the merge, making you realize how the world was not what you previously thought it to be. I've had many such experiences throughout the years, but one memory that sticks out is picking up Near to the Wild Heart by Clarice Lispector for the first time, being utterly floored by her prose for the entire novel, and then arriving at the end of the penultimate chapter with this line: "Eternity is non-being. Death is immortality." And that turned my view of death as an end point in the distance completely upside down. Death, apparently, in the words of this Ukrainian-born Portuguese 23-year-old woman in 1943, was not just an end to life, but eternity itself. Something that can never be ours as living beings. Ever since reading that sentence, my idea of death has evolved on so many levels. Since death is not just a negation of life, but also something we will never experience. All of this has also changed my perception and understanding of life. It's no longer just this fleeting experience, but a sort of forever unto itself. In the eyes of the individual, the time we're allotted here as living beings might as well be defined as, since death is not made for us, an eternity in its own right. Sorry, I got a bit sidetracked. That usually happens when I talk about Lispector's work. Now, where were we? Right. Reading gives us an avenue to drive down and witness thousands of similar experiences of ideas, thoughts, and epiphanies that have reshaped how countless people have viewed and interpreted the world. And even more ideas the authors themselves weren't even privy to might spark in you as you read just a single word they wrote down. Some ideas are obvious to us, yet groundbreaking to others, and the opposite can be just as true. But the chance to partake of something this eye-opening really shouldn't be overlooked. This is the possibility we afford ourselves when we give time to reading works with a voice not shy of divulging their experience right in front of our reading eyes. This is why I'm a bit hesitant to recommend reading for reading's sake and picking up just about any book, where the author might not have given enough time for their ideas to fully mature. The greatest authors of any generation are those who let all their ideas run wild, free to go wherever they please, yet still able to harness their value and ring them up in coherent sentences with the use of effective and imaginative language. Writers of such caliber are not too difficult to come by, since there are plenty of them out there, but there are even more who only wish to become something through their work, rather than to create something genuinely of value. For those curious, here's a brief list of my favorite authors and where I'd recommend starting out with them. But then, is this the answer to what reading is supposed to do for us? Should reading give us the opportunity to experience the living thought of other people? Sure. But I find there's more to the story than that. I have had many thoughts, but it would be difficult for me to tell you about them. But this is one thought that has impressed me, Govinda. Wisdom is not communicable. The wisdom which a wise man tries to communicate always sounds foolish. Even when written by fantastic authors, reading won't always give us something spectacular to experience. I've reread multiple books where the first time I remember them as something special, but upon returning I can't even recall why that was. This is, I believe, because reading is less like a mark carved in stone, something that remains the same throughout history, and more like the tree the pages are made of. It grows, it sways in the wind, it changes color depending on the season. A great number of books have been shunned by the world upon its release, only to re-emerge as works of genius in the passage of time. When Ulysses by James Joyce came out, it was quickly deemed inappropriate in the US and the UK, and thus banned for over a decade, only to later become recognized as one of, if not the finest work of literature there ever was. So works are only deemed great if the time is right for them. This is also true for individuals reading for themselves. What season you find yourself in will greatly alter how you view the book you're reading, which in turn means that you can't expect to know what you're going to get from reading, not even things you reread. And that brings me to the point of reading for the sake of obtaining knowledge. Many imagine reading as a door you walk through into a hall of endless shelves of information, facts, and ideas, and that once you've ingested some piece of it, you'll know it, and thus be smarter or more knowledgeable. I'd argue that's not really how reading functions. Unless you read to study a specific topic, learning facts for the sake of knowing facts, you don't have to read to remember something clever someone else said. Like when you're having a stimulating conversation with someone, where both of you come up with some fascinating takes. When you walk away from that conversation, it doesn't matter if you're able to recall every argument you come up with, but what matters is the experience of coming to a conclusion together that felt genuinely groundbreaking in that particular context. The same is true for books. If you take any idea from a book, bringing it out of its context of the work as a whole, it's easier to pick apart and criticize. But when viewed and interpreted where it should be, in the work, in the book where it lives, then it might feel like the single most important piece of information there is. Reading philosophy very often feels like this. Like the conclusion the philosopher arrives at in the end of an argument seems like the most innovative explanation ever. But then you walk away from the text and place it in other contexts, and you see how it doesn't necessarily fit anywhere else, or isn't as all-encompassing as it felt in its context. This has also a lot to do about the reader. What are you ready to have challenged in yourself when you pick up a book? What are you prepared to lose? If you're not up to losing certain aspects of your comprehension of the world or yourself, you most likely won't either. Only when you embrace the possibility of the world functioning contrary to your view can you truly experience how it's never as simple as knowing or not knowing what the supposed truth of the universe is. So reading has often less to do about what you're reading and more to do about where you're at and how open you are to welcoming an idea to infiltrate you. Only when you place yourself in the context of the text you're reading will you be able to immerse yourself in your interpretation of the meaning the author put down. Because it's not the words themselves that reshape your understanding of reality, it's you understanding something in them. As you perceive the edge of yourself at the moment of desire, as you perceive the edges of words from moment to moment in reading or writing, you are stirred to reach beyond perceptible edges, towards something else, something not yet grasped. The unplucked apple, the beloved just out of touch, the meaning not quite attained, are desirable objects of knowledge. You're doing it all yourself, and that's the beauty of reading. Someone else wrote it, but it's up to you to interpret the words in whatever way you're able to at that moment in time. Reading is always about interpretation, in remodeling, in taking what's before you and creating something new for yourself to experience. No matter if it's an abstract idea, a fantastical scenery, or the face of your favorite character, it's always up to you to create an understanding of the words for yourself. So reading doesn't necessarily teach us anything specific, but it also doesn't have to. I don't read to obtain knowledge. I also don't read for pleasure, or to seem smart, or even to catch a glimpse of the countless experiences of eye-opening epiphanies that authors have had before me. No, I read for me. Not just to see the work as it is, but as something I'm free to interpret as I like. I read to see what other people's words can influence in me and push me to want to create for myself. Reading is a conversation where you don't have to listen to anything they're saying, but you're still free to make something of your own with the words they've written down. To read is to give yourself time with yourself and swim in all possible worlds of ideas that are out there. But they're not just out there. All ideas you have are yours to do with as you like. Your interpretation of a work is never wrong, even if sometimes misguided. Falling down the pit of delusion is scary, and definitely a possibility when reading for yourself, unless you make sure to check back with reality and the world of facts every now and again. But something that has helped me come to terms with the balance between delusion and comprehension is the acceptance of not needing to know. You don't have to know everything before you're free to interpret and create for yourself. And sometimes that means you have to reinvent the wheel, which I've done on many occasions. For example, a few years ago I came up with a philosophical idea of how humanity always exists in a constant state of becoming, and never truly just being. Only to a month later find out that Plato's concept of continual becoming already explained pretty much the same thing a couple thousand years ago. But I'd argue this is not a problem for the person who accepts the truth of how we don't need to know everything before creating something with what we understand. Because my understanding of Plato's continual becoming is far deeper in me now, since I, kind of, came up with it myself. Reinventing the wheel is not just a waste of time. It has the potential of giving a much deeper connection to your appreciation of said wheel. If you came up with it, you won't forget it just as easily. It might be misguided or wrong, as far as abstract ideas can be wrong, but I think that's more than okay, since we can't truly know anything either way. So I read not for the words to give me anything in particular, or for the facts of how the universe functions, or for the author to tell me how things are. No, I read and allow my time with the text to give me the possibility of everything there is. Reading doesn't have to give me anything if I'm already prepared to get anything there is to get. And to me, that seems like a far better trade than just reading to learn something specific. But that might be just me. What does reading do for you? If you liked the video, leave a like and write a comment down below what reading does for you. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.